everybody. It is super wonderful to have you all with us for the 24th session of the YSBC web lecture series. The topic of today's conversation is the story of Eunice Center for Social Business and Health at Glasgow Caledonian University in Scotland. Today we have with us our speaker, who is Professor Cam Donaldson, Yunus Chair and Distinguished Professor of Health Economics, Glasgow Caledonian University. Our moderator today is Ms. María Isabel Irurita, Director, Centro, Yunus, para la Innovación Social, Universidad ICESI, Colombia. Professor Cam is not only well known in our academic circle, but also our whole social business family for his dedication towards the movement. Professor Cam is the Yunus Chair and Distinguished Professor of Health Economics at Glasgow Caledonian University, where until April 2021, he was Pro-Vice Chancellor Research. From 2010 to 2016, Professor Cam was Founding Director of GCU's Eunice Center for Social Business and Health. His work has been recognized through senior investigatorships from the Canadian Institute of Health Research and the UK's National Institute for Health Research. Since 2013, he has acted as the chair of the scientific committee of the annual Social Business Academia Conference, the SBAC, and has also been a key player in helping to build the network of the YSBCs, the Yunus Social Business Centers. María Isabel Irurita is a social enterprise and innovation advisor, trainer, developer, educator, and trained as an economist and an anthropologist with a PhD in progress on social innovation from Middlesex University, London. Maria has experience working in Europe, Latin America, Southeast Asia, and in 2011 joined academia as director of the Masters in Social Entrepreneurship at Goldsmiths, University of London. Upon her return to her native Colombia in 2014, she has set up the master's degree in social innovation management at Universidad ICESI in Cali, Colombia, where she continues to support and work directly with various community initiatives through the Eunice Center for Social Innovation at ICESI University. So we have a great conversation ahead today, and without further delay, let us welcome Professor Mohammed Yunus for his opening remarks. Professor Yunus.
Thank you, Zainat. What a wonderful day. We are looking forward to this day for this lecture series event that we organize every month, twice every month. And it's a very special occasion. On this special occasion, we have a very special reason to be excited about having two of our great friends to be on the screen talking about their experiences. María Isabel will be moderating, but Professor Cam Donaldson will be the speaker. Our relationship with Cam goes a long way. He was the one who kind of took the initiative to bring social business within the campus, creating a center on health, specializing on health. And then relationship with Glasgow Caledonian University became stronger because I was invited to become the chancellor of the university. And what a wonderful occasion that you have the Yunus Center there, and I'm the vice chancellor of the university. And Cam went on his own way, creating this center. It's a very robust center, attracting students, faculty, and ever since done wonderful work with the center, one of the leading centers that we ever had, and one of the earliest center we ever had. And then when it came to the Social Business Academia Conference, Cam himself took the leadership role, making sure it goes the right way. And ever since, he's directing, he's guiding, he's providing all the support to make this Social Business Academia Conference go in a very robust way, in a very intellectually satisfying way. And we are very grateful to him for that. And we're very happy. He'll be telling the story himself today. That's what I'm looking forward to hear. And we are very happy to have María Isabel to bring out all the information from him. She has been very active. Cam is one of the older pillar of social business movement, and María is the newer one. But nonetheless, very robust one to make sure that we go in the right direction, and particularly in a region where we didn't have much contact. And María provides that contact for us, and we are very happy that she takes that leadership for Latin American area of the planet. And I invite Maria to take over and lead the conversation. Maria, it's all yours now. Floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Professor Yunus, for those welcoming words. Thank you, everybody who has joined us this morning, afternoon, evening. I don't know what time you are. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm just going to start bombarding Cam with my many questions because I have way too many and many things to learn from him. So good morning, and Cam, hello. I wish we could swap places,
Isabel.
you know. I am the experienced director of a 10-year-old Yunus Social Business Center, and you were the newest. I wish we could swap places, but life is like it is. So let me just try and learn as much from you. Cam, you are obviously a pioneer of this movement, because now it's becoming a movement of setting up these Yunus Social Business Centers. Yours in particular, the one at Glasgow Caledonian University, is becoming 10 years old now, and that's what we are celebrating. You are also the only Yunus chair in the world. So I wanted to ask you, how did it all begin, basically, in terms of the relationship between you, Professor Yunus, the university itself, and this movement of Yunus centers around the world?
Thanks, Maria Isabel. But before I answer that, I just wanted to say it's a great honor to be part of the YSBC series, to share this platform with yourself, and of course, to hear those wonderfully kind words from Professor Yunus. So we have to go, in a way, we have to go back before I even came to Glasgow Caledonian University in terms of the relationship, and that's because Professor Yunus visited Glasgow, and particularly Glasgow Caledonian University in, I think it was December 2008, and he came to deliver the first in our what has now become our most prestigious public lecture series. That's the Magnuson Lectures, named after famous Icelandic Scottish journalist Magnus Magnusson, who had also been Chancellor of our university, but had the lectures were set up in memoriam to Magnus Magnusson. So we to attract such an amazing world leader to deliver that first lecture was the first kind of coup for our university in terms of our relationship with Professor Yunus. But Yunus himself and our Vice Chancellor and Principal, Professor Pamela Gillies, are both, as we know, very action-oriented people, and two main actions stemmed out of that meeting. So one was to think about bringing Yunus's ideas about microfinance to Scotland in particular, and to the UK more widely in the sense of Grameen in the UK. And then the other was to take knowledge in the opposite direction, if you like, and to, I think Professor Yunus was well aware of Glasgow Caledonian having significant strengths in nurse education. And the idea then was to take those strengths in nurse education to help establish the Grameen Caledonian College of Nursing, which has since gone on from strength to strength. The research centre really came about as the research arm of those action-orientated initiatives. And again, because the university was very strong with respect to health, the university decided, this was before I was even on the scene, that we should try and establish a research centre on social business and health. So that's really where it all began. From my point of view, it began with a phone call. I was quite happy working as a successful health economics researcher at Newcastle University in England. Things were going really well there. And this intriguing call came through about this thing called the Eunice Center for Social Business and Health at Glasgow Caledonian University. Now, I didn't really know anything really about social business. I knew who Mohammed Yunus was. What economists would not know who Mohammed Yunus was, in the sense that I think he's the only economist who has and will ever, I think, win the Nobel Peace Prize. And a lot of that was to do with his counterintuitive thinking and action. around obviously things like microfinance, but then social business, etc. And that just began to intrigue me, and the idea of bringing his sort of researching the impact of bringing his ideas to my home country of Scotland just became too tempting in the end, and particularly once you have met our Vice Chancellor and Principal, who I've already mentioned, Pamela Gillies, that really put the seal on it. And that's how it started. So it was about that agenda. It was about the challenge of doing that. A relatively modern university, not a well-established university in terms of its research. So there was a challenge there. Could we build a world-class research agenda in that context? And the opportunity in terms of the potential impact that research could have. That's how it all began, María Isabel.
Thank you, Cam. It sounds like a very interesting combination of events, opportunities, miracles, who knows? Cam, and once you decided, okay, we are going to set up the first Yunus Center, in this case, focus on health at this university, how were your initial days? I mean, how did you plan from scratch? What were your main objectives at the beginning?
Well, my initial days were very scary indeed, because I arrived at Glasgow Caledonian in May 2010, and Pamela said to me, Eunice is coming over in July. Do you think you could prepare your inaugural lecture by then? So that was her first request of me. So not only did I have that what felt like a very short 2 months to prepare my inaugural lecture, I then had to deliver it with Mohammed Yunus sitting in the front row. So that was very scary indeed. It all went really well, and Yunus, as ever, said some amazingly kind things about the lecture. And that was the official opening of the centre that day as well, in July 2010. So there was basically 3 people there: myself, the now director, Professor Rachel Baker, who has just been a mainstay, fantastically so, throughout all this, and has taken the centre on to new heights, which we can talk about, and Lindsay Beckett, who was basically the centre administrator, the 3 of us, and that was it. But the university gave us 3 initial PhD studentships, and I put a lot of credit and store in those initial 3 PhD studentships in terms of allowing us to get going, because, as you know yourself, undertaking a PhD is a huge task. So the work has to be significant, but it has to be original, and that was really what was helping to put us on the map, because I'm a health economist, and I had, in a sense, had to try and rebuild a reputation in the area. So I couldn't immediately just click myself into action and begin to attract some of the large grants that I had attracted in my previous research life. So those 3 people were crucial, and they're, one of them is now a professor, one is a reader, and one has moved to a prestigious research fellowship at a neighbouring university. So they turned out to be an incredible set of 3 students who helped put us on the map. Then we began to, also, the 2 other things are key, is to look around the university and see who might be interested, or who is interested, who would want to further their research career in this context. That worked well in terms of attracting a few more people. And then we had to think about, who do we need to get into the institution in order to help move us forward? In particular, that was expertise. I was fine on health research, as was Rachel, but we needed to balance that with expertise on social business. And that's, as well as those PhD students, we managed to attract people like Simon Teasdale, who I know that you know, and people like Olga Bioska, who was a lot younger, but is now still at our university as a reader, and they again helped drive the whole agenda forward. One more thing on that, I think, is I think it's important to have support and vision from your own university. So, I mean, if I can say this, well, obviously I'm going to say it's more establishing a YSBC. I think is about more than just getting Professor Yunus onto campus, and I think that we see that a lot, and it's just such an amazing event. But it then becomes difficult for a lot of universities to build on that. And I think to build on that requires the vision of the university leadership itself to invest in the particular YSBC that Professor Yunus has come to help establish or to open. So that and think about how your YSBC fits into the university's grander plan for, in our case, for research, but obviously for teaching and promulgation of social business.
Thank you, Cam. I think you and your team have done a great job in enrolling all that talent and expertise. There is a lot of inspiration for me, certainly, but for many other universities there as well. Cam, you focused on the relationship between health and social business. Because most of social business centers around the world are called plainly Yunus Social Business Center, whereas you from the very beginning decided to focus also on the relationship between social business and health. Do you think this was restrictive for you in any sense? For example, in designing your research programs, or how do you find that?
No, not restrictive at all. Well, first of all, Professor Yunus, I think as he indicated actually in his introduction, he gave us the freedom to go in that direction. Maybe I think partly because he himself was quite intrigued by the idea, but also perceived tremendous health needs, not only in countries like my own, where there are still gross and persistent health inequalities and differences in life expectancy by income group of, it could be up to 20 years, which is surprising to a lot of people when they see those data. But obviously those inequalities are even starker and more persistent around the world. But the reason the idea was not restrictive was because, in a sense, this was our big idea, which is another important thing to have as a research centre. And our big idea was that any social business could be, by acting on different aspects of social vulnerability, could be perceived as acting on social determinants of health. So you could have a social business might not even mention health in its mission, but through acting on, say, poverty, homelessness, any aspect of social vulnerability like that. It could be social isolation amongst older people in rural or urban communities. They are virtually by definition also going to be acting on ultimately on health. In the shorter term, it might be on mental health, but in the longer term, it could also be you could add to that physical health. Your own area. I know that you have a particular interest in creative and cultural industries and social business. Again, that could be sort of brought into our umbrella of how we have perceived and conceived of our Eunice Center for Social Business and Health, because these industries are crucial for the health of communities, aren't they? And it was really what we sought out therefore to do was to conceptualize and theorize that, but also more importantly to begin to gather together the evidence that would enable us to piece together that relationship, that these types of industries that you're involved with are important for social cohesion, they're important for inclusion, and that then follows through to impact on health and well-being. So it was quite an expansive idea, and it fits the idea of the Sustainable Development Goals, for example, whereby acting on one Sustainable Development Goal, on one SDG, you actually, whether inadvertently or deliberately, you impact on another. And that fits very well the whole idea of Muhammad Yunus's ideas of the 3 zeros, acting on poverty, acting on employment impacts on health. So even though ours is social business and health, it fits very much the idea of the 3 zeros as well.
Thank you so much, Cam. Cam, in terms of, you have answered about being focused on health. Now I want to take the question to the other corner. You and I probably know, and we are completely convinced that there is one vehicle to take us to a world of 3 zeros, and it's called social business. But what has worked for you in terms of persuading colleagues, students to be supportive of your work and on this fact of focusing on social business? Do they find it restrictive, or have you managed to convey this message and this idea of this vehicle, perfect vehicle for achieving a different world?
Yeah, do you know that's a tricky question, Maria Isabel, because in many respects we've not had any problems attracting talented students and talented members of staff from all over the world. Now, although those initial 3 were obviously local folk, but that, as I say, that's now been internationalized. So we've gone from a centre of 3 that I described initially now to about 35 people in that 10-year, or now 11-year period. We celebrated 10 years, but we're just extending the celebration because of the pandemic. So, and those 35 people, some have come and gone as well, of course. So it's more than 35 people. They've all been amazingly talented people. Now, I think they have an enthusiasm for thinking a bit differently about how we should begin to organize society and organize the economy. If anything, we have to kind of tone that down a bit to say, look, well, what we're interested in the centre is generating the evidence. So there might be occasions where something is not working, and we need to be cognizant of that, and we need to not be afraid of translating that message. But of course, that's good for social business anyway, because no one wants to be doing something that isn't necessarily working in the way, certainly in the way that it was intended. So it's not a threat to social business, but it's a slight threat to maybe the initial enthusiasm of these amazing students who come our way to be thinking about, well, research takes a slightly more objective perspective on things. You can be enthusiastic about the area, but also you need to be able to step back a bit. But again, I can't think of anyone that we've had amongst our masters, PhD students in particular, who hasn't been able to make that step as part of their own journey. I think, as well as the University for the Common Good, which is Pamela Gillies' sort of conception of our university, that's made our Eunice Center a flagship of the university. So that's made, I have to say, that's why it was a kind of difficult question to answer, because that's made things a lot easier for us, I would say. And so if we were going to be successful, which we have been, I think colleagues and students would just sort of flock to it. And I think that's what's happened. And I think the caliber of people that we've managed to attract, therefore, I just think has been tremendous.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that honesty, Cam. Cam, I know this is not easy to answer for you, because I think all of us working with social business are so humble, all the time by the work that we see, by the effort, by the commitment of the people that we work with. This is surely not easy for you, but what will you point out as your main successes over the last 10 years?
Well, I think the in a sense, it sounds a bit nerdy, but we did seek to put social business on the academic map. In our case, in research terms, and I think we've succeeded in that. You know, we've built research capacity, substantial research capacity at Glasgow Caledonian itself. As I said before, some of those people have now moved on to other universities. Almost all of our PhD students who've left, or research staff who've left, have stayed in the academic sector, but have continued to work in this area. So that's wonderful. You know, we can't keep everyone, and everyone has their own lives to go on and lead. But it's wonderful that they've sought out opportunities to stay in the sector and to work on social business whilst doing that. So that says a lot for what we've achieved as well. And then, I mean, the other thing that's been mentioned is the working with Lamia and colleagues at the Eunice Center in Dhaka to help create not the YSBC network. That's Lamia, and it's just been an amazing achievement. But my input has really been around the academic conference that takes place alongside it. So helping to create, sustain, and grow that, I think, has also been a great success too. But I think it's important for sectors like social business to have a research arm or an academic arm, alongside it. I think that gives a lot to a sector. It says, you know, we're open to asking questions about ourselves. It says that we're open to continually using research and new methods of teaching to develop ourselves, and it gives the sector, in this case the social business sector, I think, a lot of confidence to be able to portray itself in that way.
Excellent. And the nasty part of that question as well, what have been the failures, the disappointments, the challenges that you have overcame over these years, and that you think we can learn from those?
Yeah, right. That's a tricky one, because there's always in research, there's always going to be, well, what we perceive as failures. You know, that in terms of your hit rate at prestigious research funders, it's going to be very rare for even top researchers to achieve even over a 50% success rate. But the good thing about that is to keep going, because none of these ideas ever really fail. I mean, there's been one or two occasions where I've just had to give up on something because no one gets where I'm coming from, or I'm not actually getting the idea across. But generally, these ideas and the feedback you get from a rejection enables it to develop further, and then it might have a place at another funder, for example. So that's one. So there is sort of constant failure in that sense, but it's not really failure. It's lessons learned, really, and to then find a place for that particular idea or particular project. When I naively thought, around about 2010, when we got the centre going, that I'll be able to delve into new types of funding, like with private say foundations or offshoots of private companies, etc. And I used to trot around the world to conferences that Professor Yunus was at with an amazing woman called Barbara Parfit. And Barbara was the first director, like we said, the founding director of the Glasgow Caledonian College of Nursing. And Eunice used to invite us along to these sessions, I think, because we were trying to seek support for the college and for the research. Now, an early lesson for me was I just didn't stand a chance when I was standing up in front of these audiences, and because Barbara would stand up, and I don't know if you've come across Barbara Parfit, but she's an amazingly lively, convincing speaker, and a fantastic person. And she would be talking about the Grameen Caledonian College of Nursing recruiting women from Grameen families into the college, amazing development opportunity and potential impact. But that was all very action orientated as well, you see, and I would come along and start to talk about research, which even myself, I felt I was sounding quite boring. Following on from Barbara, so that was a lesson early on, and that many of those funders were interested in much more the action-orientated aspects. In the UK, it was about putting money into helping to get Grameen going. So I had to sort of rethink that and go back, in a sense, to make the case to more conventional funders. But I would say that took 4 years before we then got a big hit with a competitive conventional funder in the UK. It took us 4 years to make that case, to build our own reputation. And I also remember a conversation with Pamela Gillies, our principal, about the 3-year stage of our Eunice Center. I doubt Professor Yunus knows about this, but I went along to her and I said, I'm not sure this is working. The health economics arm of what we do was working, but we weren't really doing a lot on the social business agenda at that point with respect to health economics. We do now, which is great. But also, the kind of trying to build projects around microfinance in Scotland or social business in Scotland, it didn't seem to be convincing the funders. And maybe it was us, maybe it was them. It was likely it was a bit of both. But she said, "Carry on," and I'll never forget that conversation and how supportive it felt to hear those words. And then about a year later, we got 2 really big grants. I'm talking about worth maybe between them over £3 million. So we went from getting a grant from Santander, which was really important in helping us set up, of say £30,000 to these 2 huge grants. One was from one of our research councils in the UK, and one was from the European Commission, a project led by Simone Baglioni. And those 2 grants, in a sense, made us into a centre in research terms, so more than in name only. And that support from her was just fantastic.
Thank you so much. You've made me jealous of that particular trajectory and path, and now you have given me hope for the difficult first 3 years.
Absolutely, I think it is important to hang on in there and expose your ideas to different trusted people, and they should, and like in that case with Pamela Gillies, and if someone like her says carry on, then carry on.
Completely. Very big and encouraging piece of advice. I'm going to copy it. Carry on. Cam, you mentioned it briefly when you were talking about your main successes, but you obviously played a very important role. You were the person behind conceptualizing and bringing to reality the annual academic conference. So I want to ask you something on that. How did it all begin? I mean, what were the features of the conference in the early days? Have you seen a growth in the interest in this conference? And what do you think is the future of the annual conference on social business?
Yeah. Well, I have to say that's been one of the most amazing journeys over the last 10 years. So it started in a room in Wolfsburg at the Global Social Business Summit. There was no academia conference. That was the second Global Social Business Summit, if memory serves me correctly. It was my first one, but it was the second one. November 2010, I think. And you're looking at maybe when I say in a room, we had one session on academia at the summit, and let's say about 20 universities showed up. Probably could even be slightly less than that. But the enthusiasm was just so good, and we thought, right, let's try for. Well, we built it incrementally then. So the next summit was in Vienna. The next two summits were in Vienna, in fact, and we thought let's try for an academia day, we called it. I can't remember if it was before or after the summit, but one or the other. And instrumental in helping us set that up was the Grumeen Creative Lab, of course, Hans Reitz's organization, but particular a guy there called Leo Nima, who many people here will know, because he acts as sort of compere for the summits, and is just such an amazing guy. That's the first time I came across Leo, was setting up those academia days. They both went really well, and then we thought, right, we'll have a conference. I think the next summit was in Malaysia. So we had an academic I think first of all, it was a research conference, but we soon backtracked from that and thought, well, no, I mean, because a lot of academic institutions that are interested in social business are interested in the teaching and promulgation of it. So we can't just make this about research. It has to be about all of that. So that's one of the really interesting things about this conference is we go right from arts and humanities right through to hard science. The hard science is really people that might want to promulgate whatever they invent through that hard science through a social business vehicle. And we have business schools, social scientists sort of in between. That's really what you could turn that into a problem or a virtue. And I think so. We've made it a virtue of that conference, and it leads to so many interesting discussions. So that's how that got started, and we've gone on from Malaysia, the Kuala Lumpur conference, and just had a conference every year since then, which has been fantastic. But I would also, as well as paying tribute to the Eunice Center in Dhaka and Lamia and colleagues and the Creative Lab, there are other YSBCs that were there at the start and are still there now that have just been tremendous support to myself and Lamia and Professor Yunus in not only establishing the conference but maintaining it and sustaining it. So the folk at Asian Institute of Technology, University of Florence, so that's Fai Shah, Enrico Testi, HEC Paris, now Benedict Fevre-Tavignon, fantastic. In Japan, we've had at Kyushu, we had Masokada and Ashir Ahmed supporting us, and at California State University, Andrea Grove. I mean, I apologize if I've not listed all the friends and colleagues that have really helped establish this thing. But now, currently, Jahangir Alam Chowdhury at Dhaka University has been a mainstay of this for the last few years. So, despite Eunice's kind words, all of these people have been a tremendous source of support in this. We've innovated with it. So I don't know who it was. I think it was maybe Lamia and Professor Yunus between them came up with the idea of academia, the academia pre-meeting, which was an academic meeting that takes place alongside Social Business Day, which is the event that takes place every year around Eunice's birthday. And that itself has now developed into, I think, just another academia conference. So we now, in effect, and particularly with the pandemic and technology, one of the good things has been everyone being able to plug into meetings from all over the world. We're now effectively having 2 academia meetings a year. The future, there's a tremendous document that's produced the sort of YSBC annual report by Leo and people like Dominic Doster and Alna Lauke, the last of which, the academia report for 2020, outlined a fantastic future around the Eunice's theme of no going back. And Michael Roy from Glasgow Caledonian University, one of those original 3 PhD students who I mentioned, and myself, wrote an article in there about what needs to happen with the YSBC network and the academia conference. And it's all about collaboration. And as I said, we've innovated to enhance collaboration, but we need to, somehow we need to be able to meet and actually not just talk, which of course is what the conferences are about, and that's hugely valuable, but we need to meet and collaborate on actual projects that can help us go forward together. And then we also need to seek funding for that. And there are funders who, for instance, the European Commission, who will fund those types of networks that go way beyond Europe. And I think the YSBC network would be a great candidate for that. So we're discussing that with some European partners now, and also with Lamia and colleagues at the moment. I've actually got a meeting on that coming up in the next couple of weeks about how we can try and put a bid together that would give us the funding to enable this group to meet more and develop more research capacity around the globe.
Wonderful, Cam. I hope we can collaborate much more through the conference as well. Cam, you have already given us a lot of these, and we are running out of time, and we have some good questions from the audience as well that I would like to share with you. But what will be your summarizing, wrapping advice for the Yunus Social Business Center's community in the light of the lessons that you've learned?
Yeah, I would probably very quickly, it would be to try and ensure that you have sort of wider institutional support for your centre. Think for yourself about where does your YSBC fit into your university institutional strategy. From a research perspective, think about that big idea that you want to develop, and don't give up. Don't give up on it. Don't be afraid of your role. It's quite a modest role, but it's an important role of putting academia on the map in the context here of social business. And then think about, when you're bringing that capacity together, try to recruit talented people along a pipeline, right from master's, PhD, through early career researcher, right through to professor level. And that helps you build that critical mass. One thing we haven't discussed, of course, is think about that pathway from research into teaching and teaching back into research. And that cycle can be equally important for those different main constituencies of the university, and helping them to develop. And keep challenging the boundaries, including challenging the boundaries of social business. We've had some great discussions, and quite heated discussions at social business academia conferences, including with Professor Yunus. But no one's afraid to have those discussions, and we shouldn't be. And then out of it all, we then develop better ideas. And of course, that relates to the final point, which is to do it with joy.
To enjoy and to celebrate successes like getting to your 10th anniversary. Thank you so much, Cam. It has been so inspiring listening to you. We have a difficult but very rewarding path ahead of us, followers of you. You are the influencer and we are the followers. Cam, my last question, which is actually related to one of the questions that we have got from the panel, there are two very obvious main protagonist challenges at this moment for us as species, the pandemic, obviously, and climate change. What are you doing nowadays on these topics? And in the same sense, Callum Mackenzie is asking us, Scotland is now recovering from the pandemic. What role does YSBC at GCU play in this process from a broader societal national perspective? What opportunities do you see? So it's pretty much the same question, so I make the most.
Yeah, I think on the specifics of the two issues that you mentioned, María, Isabel, I mean, as a health economist, I've written quite a bit about the pandemic or on the pandemic. And a lot of that has been about failures in government policy, which has cost lives. I think the key has been a lack of cooperative approaches. And on that, I actually even published a paper with Professor Yunus and Jean-Luc Perron from the Paris YSBC. Many of the ideas came from Jean-Luc. We published a paper in the journal called Lancet Healthy Longevity, making the economic case for vaccines being a global public good. So sort of feeding into the campaign of which Professor Yunus has been leading. But it was such an honor to be involved in just even being making a small contribution to that particular campaign through that paper. And of course, the idea of that paper is to say that we need to open up the supply side of this market. And as part of that, that could involve prestigious companies maybe surrendering their intellectual property to allow generics to come into the market. There was a paper around all that kind of laying out that case. On climate change, I think there's a huge role for social business and microfinance in advancing the cause of climate justice. And indeed, we have a sibling research centre at our university that addresses that issue. And so for example, we are partnering with them on research projects and also in presenting sessions at the forthcoming COP26 event in Glasgow later in the year, which Professor Yunus has kindly agreed to participate. Now, COP26 takes place at the same time as the Global Social Business Summit, but what we're hoping to do is to link the two events through Professor Yunus for that particular session at COP26, which would just be wonderful. And I think more generally in relation to Callum's question, I think the opportunities for social business and therefore for social business research, I think are huge post-pandemic, because we have to think about how to reconnect communities. We have to think about inclusion. The pandemic has exposed lots of challenges largely related to inequalities and exclusion that we all knew as a social business community were there, but they've been reinforced by the pandemic. So I don't think there's ever been a greater need perhaps for social business than there is now across the globe. And with that will come many research opportunities to try and help evidence best practice.
Excellent, Cam. Cam, thank you so much. I think we are running out of time now, but I honestly have to thank you on behalf of the wider YSBC's communities for your leadership, for the vision that you managed to share with this small team at the beginning, and then it grew bigger, for the commitment to that vision as well, and for an attitude of openness that allow us new entrants to learn from you and to collaborate with you. I think we are together in that dream of having a Yunus Social Business Center in every university in every country of this world. But it is slow, and there's only 87, if I'm not wrong, of us around the world. So it is very wonderful, inspiring, hearing from you, from the first one, from the real pioneer that show us the path. So let's keep on walking together towards that dream. And thank you so much, Cam, for your time. And I don't think we have any more questions here. There is CNET there, so if you want some words to grab or anything.
No, all I would say, Maria Isabel, is thank you for those words. And it's been a privilege to be part of the series, as I said at the beginning, but also the last 10, now 11 years has just been an enormous privilege to be part of the social business journey. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think Maria summed it off really well, and it really has been an incredible conversation, very enlightening, very wonderful to hear about your journey. And as, of course, again, Maria mentioned that I think it's very inspirational for our newer YSBCs. We have 94 YSBCs in 37 countries as of now. So all the YSBCs, you know, as you mentioned, even for GCU, initially after launching, some of them are wondering what can they do, you know, what activities can they do. And I always refer them to our like senior YSBCs, like the GCU, to CAM, to Dr. Faiz of AIT, to know how they're doing, what they're doing, any advice, challenges, because you have experienced all of it. I know with GCU and I believe Montpellier, University of Florence, another university in Spain, you got together and did a program recently where Professor Yunus participated, and also opened up the avenue for research activities on social business. So that has been really, really great. And I'm sure not only Maria's YSBC, but other YSBCs also can get together and learn from the experiences. So thank you very, very much, Cam, for explaining about the whole journey. And of course, to Maria for presenting the questions and getting all the answers out. So we really, really appreciate your time. You all are there whenever we need you. And we will need you again very soon because our Social Business Academia Conference is coming up. So that is a conference where research papers, academic work on social businesses are presented to the audience. These are done by researchers or students from universities. It goes through a very rigorous process, and Professor Cam is also a part of it. And we would love to hear your feedback during our academic sessions. We will have sessions where the academics are speaking. So I welcome everybody to join those events. They're coming up in November, from November 4th to the November 6th. It's our Social Business Academia Conference. And from November 6th to 10 is the Global Social Business Summit. Due to the pandemic, we will be having them hopefully in a mix of live and online sessions. Some of the sessions hopefully will be taking place in Nairobi, Kenya. So all the information will be on our Social Businesspedia and social media, the Yunus Center page and the Yunus Social Business Center pages on Facebook. So please do check them out, and we conclude this session. But before that, I would request the tech team to place some slides on the upcoming sessions. So till then, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, everybody. See you again soon.